We realised a few years ago when we were going out to play at various parties, we'd be asked to do a room, and we'd run kind of between all different styles of bass music, and it went down really, really well. You just get people that were completely unaware about what the hell was going to happen, and then they'd come to room 2 and then they'd have us, doing our weird and wonderful thing.
For me, it's come from liking, I don't know, the manipulation of weird sounds, kind of like robot sounds, do you know what I mean? Transformer sounds. That's like, for me, that's been bass music, like sounds that you're like, what the hell is that?
Bass music is a return to the roots of rave music, where the DJ can play anything they want, any sound, any tempo, and it ties everything in through the bass.
I've been DJing since about 2001. I used to do nighttime experimental psychedelic trance. That's how 1K came into being. But after a few years, we kind of, started moving. I think it must have been about sort of 4 or 5 years ago. We started looking at bass music and what we could do with it. So I was always quite, music obviously was always a big passion of mine, but I was throwing events illegal and legal from sort of 2002. So that was more or less from sort of the age of 21 that it really kind of kicked off.
I started in Kingston, where I'm from, just DJing in pubs, basically, with Sam, another guy Tom, a couple of other guys. We did that for a few years, and then we had the idea to put some stuff out. We were getting into different stuff at the time, and hardcore was turning into drum and bass, hip hop was turning into electro. There was all sorts of stuff going on, and we just got into it from there.
DJing, I probably started when I was like 13, so that's like 14 years ago maybe. It's like DJing hip hop parties in Brixton in Plan B. We did like an old breaking throwdown. It's called Throwdown. It's like an old breaking night. So I started playing there, underage, like sneaking records in and stuff, trying to get in, and then kind of playing hip hop like stuff, for a few years after that.
So I got involved in bass music probably in the 90s. I kind of late 90s. I kind of started to hear breakbeat. And that kind of really sort of stuck out to me. I'd been hearing some sort of raves, some Prodigy and stuff like that when I was a kid at school, coming from the big boys' cars, and thought it was awesome.
And then one night, I was just sitting at home and I opened up some post, and this random dude in South Africa called 7 Art Justin had sent me a CD of his stuff. And like all I'd ever thought about doing was having a label to put my own stuff out. And all of a sudden I was sitting there with this CD and it was just phenomenal. And that was that. At that point I was like, oh, okay, that's how this works. Somebody sends you something and then all of a sudden you can't do anything but put it out.
We were playing Squat Party after Squat Party at one point, And it was literally kind of a group of about 5 or 6 of us going to every single one and just kind of, and for everyone it was really weird and different then. I mean, we're talking about maybe 4 years ago, so everybody was, not us, but our crowd were just really unexpected. You know, they didn't know what was coming.
Adam Freeland created Marine Parade Records, which was kind of an amazing sort of thing for me to kind of, it really jumped out at me. It was like an amalgamation of all the things that I really loved. So the heavy bass, the kind of hip hop attitude, and the kind of the breakbeat, because I was a drummer as a kid as well. The breakbeat sound, all of that kind of fused together really made me feel kind of like I'd found something that made me feel complete. And yeah, and found my new niche really.
It was like a real easy transition for me from like hip hop tempo straight into bass music tempo. I was kind of getting into dubstep and the sound of it, but it was just all kind of too new for me when it kind of came out. I kind of shunned it away. You know, being such a hip hop head, I was like, no, it's hip hop or nothing. So I didn't want it, but there was something in there that I really thought, like, I really like the sound of this, but it's just, you know, it's not being kind of shown to be in the right way. And then when I found stuff that was a hip hop tempo, and you know, that just got me straight into it. It was such a kind of mix between hip hop and bass music that I liked. It's just perfect.
So I think what we're experiencing now with bass music is a return to like unity in genres, basically. So in the early 90s, in the 80s and the early 90s, you had rave music, right, which encompassed so many different sounds, so many different styles, different tempos, and DJs just played rave, right, and they played that music. And then the genreification came about in the 90s, where everything got split out and you had all the genres, and then through 2000s it had sub-genres again, and everything got split and split and split, and I think everything kind of got a bit watered down. And so maybe bass music now is kind of starting to bring those back together, those genres, and starting to post dubstep. The bass sound has been basically the good bit, what everyone wants to remember fondly from dubstep, right? So that now being used in so many different places has now kind of brought that unity back together.
And for us, that's what we're looking for. We're after people to kind of like have that experimental edge, instead of just being, you know, just pigeonholed to one sound and one thing, because that stops progression. You know, I think a lot of the good thing about bass music nowadays is that everything's kind of feeding off everything else. So you might have something that is like, you know, kind of like glitch hop, but it might have other elements in it.
I think you can't really talk about genres over any kind of length, like large span of time, because it's unlikely that anyone's into the same thing for decades. That's, you know, no matter how much you love something, time has a funny effect on everything, and your tastes change. You know, it's just part of life, and things go around in cycles. So things that influence you at one time can go away, and then suddenly out of nowhere something can just come back in, especially with music, because music's made up of lots of little bits. It's not just one hook, you know, and I think that's how it works. You know, you don't even necessarily realise where the influences come from, you know, until after you listen back to the track and you're like, oh yeah.
The genres these days, I can see, you know, you see them coming and going so fast, and that's because people do kind of make each genre a thing. You know, you pick, suddenly there's 3 artists who seem to be the flow of the genre, and everyone then copies them, and then you ruin the genre, and everyone gets bored of the same sound, so they move on to the next one, and that's kind of like the way it all progresses. So, you know, if anything, merging like different genres is awesome.
My passion for music comes from my family and people that I grew up with. It comes from you know, the instruments that I played as a kid, and really sort of, you know, they helped me through my younger years and gave me some stability. It was a reliable thing for me, music, growing up. I knew it was always there for me. I feel like I'm transferring that back because I'm teaching now as well, and I'm becoming a trained music teacher. So I feel like I want to try and return that to some young people who maybe haven't had the kind of opportunities, they didn't have the families that supported them and that sort of thing, and really try and kind of encourage young people to have that passion and have that something in their life that they can always fall back on emotionally and spiritually, and just, you know, and just give them happiness.
Yeah, well, I've got a kid, so you know, from my point of view, I could be taking my daughter out on a pony, you know, rather than sitting in the studio. There's a million things, you know, as your life changes, that you appreciate about life, and it makes those times when you are in the studio so much more valuable. You know, I think when you're, you know, in your sort of, well, certainly for me, when I was in my mid-20s, I didn't really look that far forwards. I wasn't really looking back. It was just then and there, being in the studio doing that, and that was, you know, that was all I was thinking about. Whereas now, you know, I come into the studio for sort of allotted amounts of time to get specific tasks done. You know, it's changed the way that I work. It's in a positive way.
Since I've been like really young, I always listened to like music with my dad and stuff, so I didn't really, you know, even at school doing GCSEs, I studied music as a GCSE, but I didn't really get it. I thought, I just get to piss around on my drum kit for a while, like that's a free hour for me to piss around on my drum kit. It was never really explained how deep I could have gone with it. And I went into a completely different area, I started doing art and stuff, and then, you know, I was suddenly brought back like, oh, still, you know, music is something I do every day. Music is my life. I'm always listening to it. I'm always either trying to make it or it's playing somewhere. So yeah, it's like definitely just one of those things that's, I don't know, I've always done. I don't even think of it as something, I could never imagine like life without it, basically. It's just something that's like breathing. This should always be there.
But the thing about bass music is, it's when you're out, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good the stuff that you listen to at home is. When you're out and you're at a festival, there's a certain, you want to feel the music physically hit you in a certain way, and that's, you only get that with that kind of bottom end.
It's an inherent thing when you stand in front of a sound system. It's just like nothing else in life, really. You'll never experience anything like it. It's a primeval thing.
I'm going to do this until I die, basically. You know, this is something that, you know, as long as I've still got the family there to be doing it with me, then I'll keep doing it.
Without sounding like a hippie, it gives me hope in the world, because when I actually see people out there just having a good time, I kind of think, well, that is basically why we're here. So if they can all kind of get that through them, and if that's what takes them there, then positivity will come out of it, and the world will be a better place.